Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know, the show where we cut through all that information overload
Yeah.
and get right to the insights that you need fast. And today we're going to be talking about, well, it's a cornerstone of really any kind of smart marketing.
Right.
And that is understanding your data, really understanding it inside and out.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're going to be taking a deep dive into, primary versus secondary data. So we've got this fantastic resource called secondary data versus primary data.
Okay.
And our mission today is to really give you a clear understanding of what these two data types are.
Yes.
What are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and, really how can they be leveraged for effective data-driven marketing
Exactly.
in today's world.
Yeah. And in today's, constant stream of information, it's very easy to feel completely overwhelmed.
Sure.
And what we aim to do here is to give you a practical framework for understanding, where your marketing knowledge is coming from and how to best leverage it.
Okay, well, let's jump right in.
Okay.
So, when we're talking about primary data, what exactly is it?
Well, in essence, primary data is information that you are collecting directly from original sources for a specific purpose, okay? And it's for, whatever your immediate research goals might be.
Yeah.
So it's information that, simply did not exist before until you or your team went out and gathered it, firsthand.
Okay, so if I wanted to get feedback on a brand new product that my company was launching.
Yes.
And I sent out, a survey to customers, and that feedback that comes in, that would be primary data.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Okay.
And the source that we have, it highlights two key avenues for businesses to gather this, direct information. So the first one is surveys and questionnaires.
Right.
So, think about all those online surveys that we've all taken, phone interviews, or even those, old-fashioned paper questionnaires.
Yeah.
These are all about getting that input straight from your client base.
Right. Like most of us have probably participated in a survey of some kind at some point.
Absolutely.
What's the second way to get primary data?
Well, the other significant method is through interviews and focus groups.
Okay.
So, this involves actually having these in-depth conversations with customers to really understand not just what their preferences are, but the why behind it, and to get kind of a richer, more nuanced understanding than perhaps you would with a structured survey.
Okay, so it's more of like a qualitative approach.
Plus that.
Okay. So I see the distinction. Now, for someone who is considering, collecting primary data, what are some of the real advantages to it? Why is it worth the investment of time and effort?
Okay, well, the benefits are actually quite significant. I mean, the first and most primary one is relevance.
Okay.
Right? Because you are collecting this data with a specific question in mind. It's going to be highly tailored to your exact business needs and the problems that you're trying to solve. Secondly, there's the element of accuracy.
Okay.
So by going straight to the source, you are minimizing that risk of relying on, maybe outdated or potentially irrelevant insights that you might get from secondary sources.
Right. So if you're asking your customer directly about their current opinion, you're gonna get the most accurate information.
Yes. Okay. And here's where it gets really interesting. Owning this unique data about your clients. This can give you a genuine competitive advantage.
Okay.
It allows you to build these stronger, more direct relationships. And craft these truly personalized experiences because you have this deep understanding of their needs and preferences.
Okay, so it sounds like, a really powerful tool in many ways. But I imagine that there must be some downsides. To gathering primary data, right? I mean, nothing is perfect.
You're right to consider that, there are definitely some challenges, and the source points out two main ones.
Okay.
So first of all, there's the time commitment.
Okay.
Designing, effective research, gathering the data, analyzing it. This takes time. It's not an instant process.
Right.
And secondly, Depending on the methods you're using, you know, like if you're doing like in-depth interviews or large scale experiments, this can require significant resources. Both financial and personnel.
Yeah, so time and budget are definitely two factors to weigh.
Right.
Now, the source mentions this growing trend of marketing researchers using online surveys to collect primary data. What's driving that shift?
Well, I think it's several factors, but as the source highlights, the rise of these digital tools and customer data platforms, it has made online surveys considerably more efficient. They're often more cost-effective than traditional methods.
Right.
They offer great scalability, so you can reach a large audience quite quickly.
Right.
And they enable real-time data collection.
Okay.
So, you can start seeing results almost immediately.
Yeah, that makes sense in our increasingly digital world.
Right.
Now, this is where it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah.
The source talks about Web3 and Decommerce and how they're really kind of changing the game when it comes to primary data collection. Can you explain that?
Certainly. So, I mean, traditional primary data collection, it can sometimes feel a bit, transactional, right?
Yeah.
Like you're asking for information. Tell me this, tell me that.
Right.
What Web3 and platforms like Decommerce are introducing is this more, I would say, integrated approach.
Okay.
Where customer interaction itself is generating valuable primary data.
Okay.
So instead of just relying on, these direct questions, you can incorporate gamification reward systems. Often leveraging, Web3 technologies like tokens or NFTs. Okay.
To incentivize real-time engagement.
Okay.
So as customers interact, their behavior and their preferences, these are captured as data, but in a much more, I would say, organic way.
So it's less about, me pushing out a survey to get the information.
Right.
And it's more about them just naturally engaging in a way that just provides me the data.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And a key difference, is data ownership.
Yeah.
So instead of, relying on third-party platforms to provide you with these customer insights, which often come with, limitations and they're not fully under your control.
Yeah.
You can directly own your customer data.
Okay.
And this can foster greater brand loyalty as customers are actively participating and being rewarded, directly for their engagement.
Yeah.
It's kind of cutting out the middleman. That's a really interesting evolution in how we gather information. Okay, now the source throws out some pretty compelling statistics about primary data and marketing managers in 2025.
Right.
So what are some of the key numbers that we should be aware of?
Well, the first statistic is quite eye-opening. 87% of marketers believe that data is their organization's most underutilized resource.
Wow.
So that really underscores, I think, the untapped potential that's out there.
Right.
Secondly, there's a clear direction of investment. 40% of brands are planning to increase their spending on data-driven marketing initiatives.
Yeah.
So, there's this growing recognition of its crucial role and perhaps most significantly, companies that really embrace these data-informed approaches, they're seeing much higher returns. They're achieving 5 to 8 times greater ROI compared to those that don't.
Okay.
So, investing in understanding and utilizing primary data, it's not just a nice to have, it really can be a game changer.
Yeah, those are some figures that really highlight the value proposition. Now, the source also provides, I think, 6 concrete examples of companies that are successfully leveraging first-party data. So let's delve into a few of those and just see what kind of practical lessons we can take away.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So let's start with L'Oreal.
Okay.
So they achieved a 2.5 times increase in their offline revenue and a 2.2 times improvement in their return on ad spend.
Okay.
And they did this by, essentially integrating their first-party data with predictive analytics.
Right.
So their approach involved using, their CRM data, their behavioral data, to create more personalized ad targeting. So really kind of...
So they're taking the information they already have and making it work harder for them.
Right. It's not about just collecting more.
Yes.
It's about
using what you have.
Using what you have.
More intelligently.
More intelligently.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this led to greater customer engagement and higher conversion rates.
Okay. What about Interflora?
Okay, so Interflora saw really impressive outcomes as well. So a 30% increase in revenue, a 22% rise in customer purchase frequency, and a 32% reduction in their customer acquisition costs.
Huge.
Yeah, and they accomplished this by, combining their sales data with these automated marketing workflows. So this allowed them to optimize their strategies for things like cross-selling and improving customer retention.
So automation seems to be like a key theme here.
Yeah, using your data
to drive more efficient processes.
Okay, and let's look at one more example.
Okay.
Rituals experienced an 85% increase in conversions.
Wow.
And they did this by analyzing their first-party data to identify their most valuable customers and then crafting these personalized offers. So they really leveraged purchase history, website browsing behavior to really refine who they were targeting and what they were offering.
Exactly. So this shows the impact of really understanding your best customers and tailoring your offers accordingly.
And we see similar success stories with Kia, who achieved much higher conversion rates, click-through rates. W for a woman who really improved their retargeting effectiveness.
Right.
Pets at Home, who saw substantial growth in customer value and revenue through personalized ads. So all of this, all driven by data.
All driven by data.
Yeah.
These aren't just like abstract concepts. These are like real results that businesses are achieving.
And that you can achieve.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've really covered getting information firsthand. Now let's turn our attention to the other side of the coin, so to speak.
Yeah.
And talk about secondary data.
Okay.
So what exactly is secondary data?
So secondary data, in contrast to primary data, is information that's already been collected by third parties.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's been collected for purposes other than your immediate business needs.
Okay.
So it's pre-existing data that's out there that you can access and utilize.
Right.
It can be used to complement your primary research.
Okay.
And to gain broader insights into your industry and the market landscape.
Okay, and what are some of the primary sources of this kind of data?
So, our source, it points to two main categories.
Okay.
So first you have public records and government reports.
Okay.
So, this would include things like census data, industry reports that are published by government agencies.
Right.
As well as, general market research studies that are available to the public.
Okay.
And then the second key source is third-party research and online databases. So, this would encompass white papers, academic journals, and business intelligence platforms that compile and analyze, data on various industries and consumer trends.
So if I was researching, the coffee market in general, and I was looking at government statistics on coffee consumption or reports from, market research firms that would be using secondary data.
Exactly, yeah. And when you're analyzing this pre-existing information to draw insights that are relevant to your current marketing objectives. That's what we call secondary data analysis.
Okay, so what are some of the advantages of using secondary data?
Okay, well, the two main benefits are actually quite attractive.
Okay.
So, first of all, it's generally much more cost effective. You don't have to allocate resources to that often expensive process of collecting data directly from clients, because the information is already available.
Right.
Secondly, it can save you a considerable amount of time.
Okay.
accessing pre-collected information,
Yeah.
this allows for much quicker analysis compared to, a potentially lengthy process of designing and executing primary data collection.
Okay, so it's faster and cheaper.
Yeah, and cheaper, yes. Yeah.
So that seems like a good starting point.
Yeah.
Why does the source suggest that marketers often prefer to look at secondary data first?
Well, there's a couple of, I think, smart reasons for that.
Okay.
One is that it can facilitate much faster initial decision making.
Okay.
So, you can quickly get a sense of the landscape, validate some initial assumptions, understand that broader context of your market without having to wait for, brand new research to be completed.
Okay.
The other main reason is that it provides broad market insights.
Okay.
So secondary data, it can give you a good overview of industry-wide trends, competitive intelligence, the general state of the market.
Right, so it's like a good way to kind of get oriented and understand the bigger picture.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, but I imagine there must be some limitations to relying on secondary data. What are some of the downsides?
Well, you're right to be cautious. Our source highlights a couple of important limitations.
Okay.
So one is, the potential for the data to be outdated, right? So, since it wasn't collected specifically for your purpose, and it may not have been collected recently, it may not accurately reflect, the current market conditions, and that can obviously make real-time decision-making challenging.
Okay.
The other significant drawback is that it's often not perfectly tailored to your specific business needs.
Okay.
So because it was gathered for a different objective, it might not directly address your unique research questions or align perfectly with your business goals.
And this leads into a really crucial point that the source makes.
Yeah.
And it's this potential trap that small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs can fall into by relying too heavily on secondary data alone.
Right.
So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this is a really critical consideration, While secondary data can be very valuable, in providing background context, relying exclusively on it, that can be a significant misstep, particularly for smaller businesses. The core issue is this lack of specificity.
Right.
So secondary data, it often offers, these broad generalizations, industry averages, but it doesn't provide you with the granular, detailed insights that you need for truly effective personalized marketing. And, in today's market, especially with, millennials and Gen Z consumers, there's such a strong demand for highly customized and relevant experiences. You know, so if you're only looking at broad market reports, you're likely missing crucial insights into what truly motivates your specific customers.
Okay.
And without collecting that firsthand data, you might really struggle to create genuinely engaging and tailored marketing campaigns.
Okay.
You're potentially missing out on building those authentic customer relationships that can differentiate you in a competitive landscape.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Now, we've talked about, primary data, secondary data in quite a bit of detail.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and just look at how this all fits into this concept of data-driven marketing.
Right.
So what exactly does data-driven marketing?
Okay, so data-driven marketing at its core is the practice of using customer insights.
Okay.
So, these insights are gathered from both primary and secondary sources to develop more targeted and effective marketing campaigns and ultimately enhance customer engagement.
Okay.
So it's about making your marketing decisions based on evidence and analysis rather than relying on just intuition or guesswork.
Okay.
So for you, this means using data to understand your audience and tailor your efforts accordingly.
Okay, and where does this term big data fit into all this?
Okay, so big data, this refers to these increasingly vast and complex data sets that are generated from our digital interactions.
Right.
So, think about everything from, website visits, social media activity, online transactions, data from connected devices, the Internet of Things.
Okay.
So it's characterized by its sheer volume,
Yeah.
the speed at which it's generated, what we call velocity, and just the wide variety of data types that are included.
So to make sense of all of this requires
it requires
some pretty sophisticated techniques.
Exactly, advanced analytical techniques and often machine learning.
Okay, so in practical terms, how are marketers using this big data in their day-to-day work?
Well, they're using it in numerous ways.
Okay.
They're analyzing it to personalize their advertising and their marketing campaigns. Ensuring the right message is reaching the right person at the right time.
Okay.
They're using it to predict customer behavior. So, anticipating what customers might want or need in the future.
Okay.
It's helping them refine their overall brand strategy, to better connect with their ideal customer segments.
Okay.
And of course, it's essential for continuously optimizing their marketing strategies.
Okay.
Identifying what's working, what needs adjustment.
So when we're talking about data in the marketing department, what kind of data specifically are we talking about?
So our source, it helpfully breaks this down into three main categories.
Okay.
So, first there's demographic data. So, this is information like age, gender, income level.
Okay.
Then you have behavioral data. So this looks at, past purchase history, website activity, how customers are interacting, with your brand online.
Right.
And then finally, there's engagement data.
Okay.
So this is, tracking things like email open rates, social media interactions, how people are responding to your marketing efforts.
Okay.
So each of these provides a different lens through which you can understand your audience.
And the source provides this really interesting example of this online fashion retailer launching a new product line. And they kind of use it to demonstrate how all these different data types